Plants are always in this arms race with both pests and animals. And so there's always new pests evolving, there's new diseases evolving. We are always just one disease outbreak away from global starvation.
Of course it's possible to have sustainable development and economic growth because they're not mutually exclusive. I think that we really need to be focused on being much more solution-orientated, and our conversation needs to be about what we can do and how we can do it.
There's no question that we have to reduce carbon emissions. The direct effect of carbon dioxide in plants is reducing their nutritional value. At the moment, we're looking to, in 50 years' time, you won't be able to make a decent loaf of bread out of wheat because it won't have enough protein in the grains. So these are not small issues, and these are not issues that are going to be solved by simple genetic technology or gene editing techniques. They're much more complex than that.
We have really quite poor environmental practice. We have very large houses still, so while they're starting to go down in size, we build the largest houses in the world, even larger than the average American house, around 250 square metres. It's just unbelievable if we think about all the power that's required to heat and light them.
Urban planning is really the way of the future. We've got massive growth. The drain that's putting on the environment, on the natural environment, we're aware globally of the impact of climate change, sea level rises, etc.
People think that reducing carbon emissions is difficult. I tell you what, dealing with the consequences of high CO2 on crop production is much more difficult. I'm really frustrated by climate skeptics. I've been working in this field for 20 years. 20 years ago, I published my first paper on the effect of high carbon dioxide on the relationship between protein and cyanide. It was all written up in the papers.
The endless sprawling of our cities is a really significant challenge. People don't quite understand the implications when we think of what's happening in the outer areas of our suburbs and the way that our lives and the way we work are being transformed. It was possibly acceptable to have a low-rise city when we had distributed manufacturing and different areas of work that were distributed more evenly through our cities. That is no longer the case.
Moving to a low-carbon future is really a technological challenge, even though it sounds like it's going back to a simpler past.
The focus of my research currently is looking at ways to improve process efficiency, particularly in the area of spray drying of dairy powders. We work a lot with dairy companies to look into their process and the powders that they produce, and we're trying to find ways to optimize those processes. And that includes conserving energy, conserving resources, and reducing waste.
I think there's so much research and innovation that's coming out of the R&D sector, the university sector, that we need a really strong narrative to go with it, to see it through to implementation, to think that we could understand a planetary challenge and a societal challenge, say from a narrow science perspective or a narrow engineering perspective. That's sort of insufficient to catalysing solutions. We need these disciplinary perspectives, bringing law together with art, with architecture, with engineering, with social science, with economics, with medicine. Bringing those disciplinary perspectives together is the space for innovation, and it's the space to catalyse true solutions to global challenges.
One of the most significant trends that I want to see come to an ultimate conclusion is to developing housing that is ultimately zero emission, and where our houses may actually be contributing energy back to the overall system.
We are rapidly worldwide developing the capability to generate huge amounts of solar and wind power, but often that power is not when we want it in time, and nor is it often where we want it in place, so to speak. These are very solvable problems. We now understand the problems, and we're working on solutions that are quite viable.
The exciting part about physics is discovering new things that haven't been seen before. So in my field, we make materials that don't exist anywhere else on Earth, or maybe even in the universe. So what we've recognized is that computing plays a central role in the solutions to a lot of our sustainability problems. Computing uses a lot of electricity. It's about 5% of the electricity that's used planet-wide. At the same time, the silicon that we use to make our computer chips is reaching a point where it's not getting any better. So we need a new technology that can continue to give us these gains in energy efficiency and allow us to do more with computers and extend that information revolution.
And obviously, solar is one of the main renewable sources of energy that we've got, along with wind and hydro. Storing that sustainable energy in one form or another, either directly into some form of chemical energy is one thing we work on, or taking the electric supply from a photovoltaic type of solar panel directly into a battery or other kind of storage device is another theme that we work very hard on here. We're looking at changing, for example, the lithium battery into a similar battery but based on sodium or magnesium. And these two metals are vastly cheaper and more abundant.
The challenge that the electronics industry faces is enormous because they know that they have a problem, but they don't know what the solution is. What we're doing now will have a big impact on the future. It's laying the groundwork for the next electronics technology that's going to take over after silicon stops getting better.
If we can truly solve the energy issue, then we will be, for example, able to make sustainable ammonia for fertilizers. We'll also be able to use energy to desalinate water for whatever purpose we need that for.
Water is the lifeblood of a planet. In fact, populations cannot come together and grow as communities without water. So for me, water is a fundamental pillar to well-being, fundamental pillar to planetary health, and it's a fundamental pillar to having more prosperous societies. I'm really interested in providing sustainable water services to the vulnerable. So I'm working on a project where we're revitalising 24 slums, 12 in Indonesia and 12 in Suva, Fiji. We've got 1 billion people living on the planet today that don't have adequate water supply, sanitation or flood protection. By 2050, it'll be 3.5 billion people. It's a massive problem.
We're really in the golden age of biology, and many of the problems that we face are eminently solvable.
We work closely with companies in different areas. For example, the one that I'm currently involved is with the food and dairy industry. We want to transform the industry, and one way to transform that is by training high-level skilled graduates to go into the industry.
I'm actually really positive going forward. I think that these problems are solvable. I think we do have to solve the issue of rising carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Again, we know what the solutions are. Putting those things together, there are solutions. We just have to decide as a community that we want to actually do it.
The challenge, the complex challenge of sustainable development as opposed to traditional development gives us opportunity to be innovative, and it gives us opportunity to think about prosperity and well-being and even happiness.
To get a sustainable future, we really have to have a sustainable society. And that really is those strong relationships between individuals. It's the relationships you build up. It's the trust and the interdependency. It's bringing all those things together. And the hard infrastructure on the surface is really the manifestation of the work that's going on between people.
I'm really optimistic about the values that our younger generation have and the sorts of values that our students express.
If you look at the students at Monash University, across all the faculties and all the disciplines, there is this hunger and this yearning to really make a difference and to contribute to the well-being of the planet.
They do want to make a difference, and I think that's the really important characteristic of these young generations of scholars that are in our universities that unlike some of their forebears, they really are committed to making a difference, and they understand what will happen if they don't pursue that commitment.